I'll give a specific example, Oliver Anthony.
Right.
He gets really, really big. He issues these statements after the fact, like, why is Fox News playing my video? Haha, it's about them. He says it's not about politics. It's not, because he does not know what the culture war is. Everything he sings about, and he's a good avatar for this, everything he sings about representing working class people is effectively a right, quote unquote, a culture war right position. But then he doesn't understand because he's not involved deeply in it. So when the media attacks him and calls him conservative, right wing, and the left says these things, he's like, no, it's not left or right. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just my lived experience.
Well, he didn't even have a Twitter account until August.
Yeah. And now here he is. And that's my point. These regular people, you go to them, they don't understand the depravity and the evil of the uniparty, neocon, neolibs, all of these warmongers and this garbage. They don't get it. The Jussie Smollett stuff, the woke corporations, they think, well, I'm going to be somewhere in the middle, but they don't pay attention. And then when you actually engage and you say something like, look, I'm not here to argue about policy or anything like that, but it is true that Joe Biden got that prosecutor fired while threatening to withhold $1 billion. As soon as you say that, you're right wing. My favorite thing is when he said you got money for foreign wars, you can't feed the poor. It's like, that's a right wing talking point because the left says sacrifice for Ukraine.
Right.
It's like, you're in the politics, dude. My point is normies don't get it. And if you're loud enough and we bring up more stories like this and we question these things, maybe they might start to see more of the issue.
Go ahead. No, by all means.
Oliver Anthony is kind of the personification of what Pericles said long ago, which is you may not be interested in politics, but politics are interested in you. And we're seeing that. This is a guy who, writes songs, and he did one about his frustration with how things are going. And it was, there was a political element to it, but the guy clearly does not want to be political. And it seems like the rest of his songs aren't political to speak of. And he's been thrust into this political battle he didn't want to be a part of. And, a part of me wants him to just be able to just be a guy who's making songs. Unfortunately, he's being dragged into something he didn't even want to be a part of, which speaks to what you're talking about.
It's because there is a culture war.
Yeah.
You do not, exactly as you mentioned, Pericles, I think you said, right?
Yep.
You may not be interested in politics. Politics is interested in you. There's nothing you can do about it. We're in a culture war. If it was 20, 30 years ago, you can say, I don't care for Democrats or Republicans, leave me alone. And people might be like, okay, I get it. Today, doesn't matter. The moment he said minors on an island somewhere, far right.
Yep.
That was it. And then they started accusing him of being QAnon. And he's like, I'm not political. That song's about Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the one funding the foreign wars. And at the very least, while there are many Republicans who want war, there are many who don't.
Yep.
So there's a debate happening over there and not one happening over there. It is clearly more about one side than the other.
There's the other thing, too. You were talking about 20 years ago, the culture war. And it's like 20 years ago is about when artists and art programs and all of that kind of thing started saying that you have to be an art activist, and politics started being really infused into art programs, which is when I was in grad school. And that's what it all turned into. Like, I was studying theater, and the next thing I know, it's not about telling a good story. It's not about making something beautiful. It's about infusing your work with political narrative. So that started there, and it's been pushing out this whole way. And now we see, like Oliver Anthony can't get a song out without it being part of the culture war. But like, also you kind of need to know where you're squatting down. You know what I mean? Like, take a look around.
Yeah.
I got to completely agree with that. The dude, it's an awesome song. I love Richmond, North of Richmond. Obviously, everybody loves it because it's good. But the dude he personifies in many ways a regular person. And I mean this with no disrespect.
No, like literally.
Right. Seeing a lot of these problems we can all kind of identify while being lied to by the corporate press. He did criticize them for it.
Yep.
But my criticism back is, my dude, you must pay attention. You must recognize who your enemies are and who your friends are. And I'm not saying the Republicans are your friends by no stretch of the imagination. Nikki Haley goes up on stage screaming lies about Putin wanting to invade NATO so she can justify her insane warmongering. Yeah, Republicans are mostly bad as well. But you need to recognize who will come after you when you say something like minors on an island somewhere, right? It is going to be the politicians who are on that plane, who are typically aligned with the establishment and their corporate allies.